And welcome to Command the Media. I am your host, Dr. David Harris, and I'm happy to be here from the campus of Dixie State University. It's certainly good to be here. It's a beautiful day here in St. George, Utah. It's nice and warm. I'm going to do some bicycling later, and I'll tell you what, Dixie State just is a beautiful place. We're going to do something fun today. We're going to go ahead and create something in Illustrator today. It's a Passalong card. Let me show you what it looks like here. Here's a little bit of information about Dixie, but that's okay. Let's go to Illustrator. And here's the Passalong card that we're going to be working on today. Let me go ahead and get that logo out of your way. This is just a simple card that we could use to distribute. Now this comes in two sizes, that's why there's two of them here. This one's about 3 inches tall by 2 inches wide, and it's just something you could hand out that's almost business card size. And this is one that would be more like poster size, about 8 by 10, something like that as far as inches go. And we're going to build this. This is a little bit of a fun project. Adobe Illustrator is a fantastic thing to do. Creative Cloud is only, for students, it's only about 20 bucks a month, which is just absolutely great. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get started. It's going to be a good time. Let's dive in. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project here. File New. And this is going to be for print. So I'm going to select one of the print presets. Letter comes up by default here in my current version of Creative Cloud with Adobe Illustrator. But I'm going to change down the points and change it into inches. And for the width, I'm going to go 2 inches. And for the height, I'm going to go 3 inches. Color mode, I'm going to do as CMYK color because I would anticipate that this would be something that would be printed, but it doesn't have to be. Now that's actually something that we should probably talk about just for a second, and that is that even if it's not going to be printed, we can still use it and in the CMYK color space. Not going to be that big of a deal, the color mode of CMYK. We can use it on social media, we can put it on a website. It's going to be okay. But the target for this is that we're going to print it, the idea being that it's going to be a business card or a poster or something like that. So it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I'll go ahead and just leave that 2 by 3, looks good. Go ahead and select Create. And I end up with my blank artboard here that's 2 inches wide by 3 inches tall. And the first thing I want to do is create a rectangle that's going to be my background. I'm going to click and hold on this and let you know that there's lots of shapes in this tool, but the rectangle tool is the one that we're after. I'll select the rectangle. And I'm just going to start up here just outside the artboard because it's going to be printed just inside where this white square is. It's a little bit different than something like Photoshop if you're used to that, where we're only going to output what's on the white area, the white rectangle, but we get to view the other area of the screen area, which is the pasteboard here, the gray area. And I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to make this into a gradient. So I'm going to come over here and select gradient as my fill color. So let me go ahead and bring the fill color forward. So it's the one I'm working toward, I should say. The fill color will be the color with which this rectangle is filled with, as opposed to the stroke, which is currently set to black. And I'm going to set this fill to a gradient. I'll select gradient, and immediately I get this gray scale linear gradient. In order to change this, I can do a couple of things. First thing I need to do is I need to bring up my gradient palette, which I just barely hid. If it's not here for you, you can come up here to Window and select Gradient. Make sure there's a checkbox there. That's going to be true of all the palettes that we're going to be using today. And I'll tell you what though, before I do that with the Gradient tool, I do need to do a couple things. I'm going to change this back to color because there's a few colors that I want to use, and that was that secret that I was telling you. This is the style guide for Dixie State University. I've got some colors here that I can use. And I'm just going to use these hex codes. The BA1C21 is one I'm going to load in here. So I'll double click on this, which allows me to type in the hex code for it. I'll do a BA1C21. And that becomes that red color. And I'm just going to bring my swatches palette a little bit closer. And I'm just going to take this red, actually the red right here, and just going to drop it down here and double click it. And I'm going to call this DSU red, just so that I'm aware of what color that is. And I'll go ahead and double click this again, and Apple tab or Command tab 881518, 881518, those are all numbers in that code. Select OK. This one I'm going to drop down into my swatches here, double click it. I'm going to call this DSU dark red. Then I've got this beige color, that's E5D 9BD, E5D 9BD. That's a little bit more challenging to see, but no big deal. Drag that down, double click it, and this is DSU beige. And lastly, we'll go with black, which is not quite black. You can see it's 020202. And I'll go ahead and select that 020202. Not quite black, very, very close. In fact, probably so much so that it's really hard to tell the difference. And I've got the black there, double click it, we'll call it DSU black. Now, the reason I've done this is because I have got these swatches that I can use over and over again. And that's something you'll probably want to do for most projects. If you've got specific colors you want to use, you make the colors, drop them into that swatches palette, give them a name so you know which one's which, and then you can always just go to those colors again and again and again. It makes it really, really easy. I'll go ahead and drag my swatches palette out of the way. I've got my rectangle here now, and I'll go back to the gradient. And I want to drop this down, make the type a radial gradient. And I want to change my colors here. You notice I brought my swatches palette really close to this gradient palette. I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's see, I'll tell you what, let's grab just this blue color here, the CMYK blue. I'm going to drop it right there as my blue color. So I've got the blue in the center, and I want to go with a darker color along the outside, but this black is a little bit way too black. So I'm going to go with this darker blue that's right here. I'm going to go ahead and just drop it now, that swatch, right onto the edge. You can see there's not much of a difference in that gradient. It is a little lighter here in the middle, is a little darker, and that's going to be just enough to give us something really awesome. At this point, it's my MO to save, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. I hit Command S on my Mac, and it would be Control S on a PC, and I'm just going to call this Passalong and drop it in that default folder. Illustrator CC, and that's going to be just fine. I'll select OK, and I've got my background here. Next step for us is going to be to get this logo. Now this logo is a vector version of a logo, but I don't have any vector versions of this particular logo for Dixie State. Let me tell you just a quick overview of the difference between vector and raster images. Raster images, you have little pixels, and those pixels, as they get bigger, it's just making essentially a dot larger, and vector is really just lines and points between those lines, and then fill colors and so forth. Photoshop is really good with raster type images, and vector type images are really good with Illustrator. And so we're going to use a raster type image, and we're going to do something I like to call just vectorizing. So I have this particular logo here. It's the, if I space bar, give you a little preview. This though, notice is a JPG. It's a JPEG image, which is a raster type image. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just drag that, not double click it, I'm going to drag it, whoops, we'll get it. Just going to drag it into my project. And then I'll Command Tab over to Illustrator. You can see it's quite large, comparatively speaking, which makes sense. I'm just going to hit Command and minus sign a few times just to make it smaller. Would be Control on your PC, and I've still got my rectangle tool selected, so I'll use my selection tool, V on the keyboard. I'm going to hold my Shift key and drag the corner down, make it smaller. I'm holding my Shift key so that it preserves the aspect ratio. You can see if I don't have the Shift key selected, you can see what happens. I end up with fat Brooks, and that would not be good. I'll hit Command Z to undo that. Hold my Shift key down, preserve my aspect ratio, and drop that to a point where it actually fits inside there. Hit my Command 0, that'll fill the area now. Then I'm just going to put it up here in the top. But this, even though we're in Illustrator, is actually a raster type image, and we need to vectorize it. Illustrator provides a really easy way for us to do this. We can use this image trace feature. I'm going to drop this little triangle down here next to the image trace button, and I'm going to choose 6 colors. The reason I'm doing that is because I've got quite a few shades of blue in here. I've got this red, I've got this blue, I've got this gray, and I've got white. Those are all colors that are involved in this logo. You might want to experiment depending on the type of image that you have, but generally speaking, you're going to want to go with the number of colors that best is associated with the colors that are in there. I'll hit 6 colors, and what Illustrator does is it brings up my little progress window and tells me that it's working to trace this automatically. As we trace this, it's going to fill it with points and lines and fills, and then it's going to display for me once it's done what it's come up with only 6 colors. You can see I do have 6 colors here. Let me go ahead and zoom in just a bit for us. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 for the red, 5 for the gray, and 6 including the white. That's exactly what I want. You can see it's traced it very nicely. If I zoom in, I'll use my zoom tool this time, just click and drag. I want to show you how nice and crisp these edges are around the logo. This is great, and it will work really, really well when you've got a high quality JPG like I had. If you've got a lot of what we call artifacting, issues with the JPG, you're going to have issues as you do this trace. Now this is just a preview. In order to use it, I need to hit this expand button. And now you can see all the individual points and all the lines around this image. Now as we go back here, you can see I'm not using the blue parts around it, just using around the red outline. So I'm going to use my direct selection tool now. And direct selection tool will select individual components of larger grouped shapes, if we think of this as a grouped shape. I'm going to select this first one and hit delete. This one, hit delete. This one, hit delete. And this one, hit delete. And then I've got this white line. I'll hit delete on that. And then I'm just going to look. I'll probably, in fact, move it around with my selection tool just to have a look. You can see I do have a few points here, down here, and then I've also got this color down here. So I'll use my selection tool. Just going to deselect by clicking out here in space. Then I'm going to select just about where those points are without getting into my red area. I don't want to select something I don't want selected. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to be involved in this background either. So I'll go ahead and just start out here in the pasteboard area, the gray area, and go ahead and select that. That time I did actually get my blue, but that's okay. I'll go ahead and deselect that, get those points again, hold my command key down, actually should be my shift key, and deselect that. We'll get it. Live YouTube is always fun. There we go. And now we can delete those points. You always want to check to see what's selected, and since we've got our background on here, a lot of times we'll end up with that selected. You can see if you see these anchor points selected, but you can see I don't on this. This looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and change back to my regular selection tool, select this image and hold my shift key down again, and I'm just going to go ahead and make it larger, and then just move it so that it's roughly in the center of the page. Doesn't have to be perfect. If we come on over here to our exemplar, next thing we need is this white rectangle. So I'll go back to my rectangle tool. I'm going to scroll down just using the scroll wheel on my mouse. And I'm just going to click and drag and make that rectangle right there. This time, as you can see, I've got a white fill. It's a little bit transparent. We'll get to that in a second. It's a white fill with a black stroke. The stroke is around the outline. The white is the color with which it's filled. So I have my rectangle here. This is my stroke. I need to change it to a color. So I'll select the color right here. And then I need to choose what color it's going to be. And I will do that by going to my selection tool. Actually, I should say, I'll leave it on rectangle. We'll go to our swatches, and we're going to select black. And then I'll choose my fill, change it to a color. It's actually already there. This one I'm going to select white from my swatches. And now I'll go ahead and deselect it so that you can see it. And you can see I've got that black stroke with the white fill. I'll select it one more time, and I need to change the transparency of that white color. Let me move this swatches out of the way. And I'm going to use that with the appearance palette. Again, if you can't see it, go to Window and Appearance. And with this appearance palette, I need to drop down the fill here and select the opacity. And then I'm going to change this opacity to, let's see what 50% looks like. 50% is going to be perfect. Excellent. So what you can see that we've done here, as I deselect, is we've got a perfectly black and non-transparent or perfectly opaque stroke color and a semi-transparent, 50% transparent white fill, which is exactly what we have. I'm going to hit Command S because I want to save this just in case I have something crash or something scary happen. And then I'm going to go to my Type tool. T on the keyboard is a shortcut. And I'm going to go ahead and go all the way to the edge of what would be the artboard. You can see this line represents the edge of my document. And I'm just going to make a text bounding box that's exactly the width of that. I end up with this dummy text in here, but I need to change this, and it needs to say Dixie State University. So I'll go ahead with my text tool, now that I've moved over, Dixie State University. That's where we're at, perfect. I'll hit Command A or Control A if you're on a PC. Then I'm going to select my window, my type, and I'm going to go to my paragraph palette. which brings up both my character and my paragraph. And I'm going to center this. By having the edge of the bounding box on the edge of the document, I'm ensuring that this is centered perfectly. Then I'll go over to my character palette, and I'm going to make this font bigger. In fact, I'm just going to click it a couple times because it doesn't need to come up very high. 16's too high. Looks like 14 is going to be just about right, like the three bears. Perfect. And I need to change the color of this as well. I've got my fill color selected exactly like I want. I'll come over here to my swatches, and I'm going to have it match this red color right here, which is going to be my DSU red. There's my swatch. Comes in beautifully handy. Go over to my selection tool. Now I'm just going to go ahead and just use my arrow tool, my arrow key, I should say, on my keyboard, just to drop that Dixie State down just a little bit. And what the heck, I might as well go ahead and clean up this bounding box just a little bit as well. I'll go right here to the corner. There we go. Use my selection tool and grab this edge, make that bounding box just large enough that it needs to be. Then I'm going to select the rectangle. I'm going to bring that in just a bit as well so that that matches perfectly. All right, great. Now I may be needing to move these, and so I'm going to group them. I've got my rectangle selected. I'm going to hold my Shift key down on my keyboard and select the words Dixie State University. Then I'm going to hit Command G or Control G, which groups them. Let me show you. If I deselect over here and I move that rectangle, you notice the words come with it. That is extremely handy. I'll hit Command Z to undo. I've got Dixie State here, but if we come over here, we can see that if we look closer, let me zoom in, our Dixie State University has that black drop shadow. Let me show you how to do that. In fact, I'm going to have to ungroup this to do that, so I'm going to hold Shift and Command and G to ungroup. I'll deselect over here, and I'll select just the Dixie State University words. Come over here to my Appearance palette, which is hidden behind my swatches. My golly, they're just all over the place. And that's a great word, golly. I love it. Got my Appearance palette opened up. Window Appearance, if you don't have it opened up. I'm going to drop Effects down. And under the Illustrator Effects, I'm going to select Stylize, Drop Shadow. Notice I do also have a Stylize down here with Photoshop Effects, but I don't have a drop shadow with it. I need Stylize, Drop Shadow under the Illustrator Effects. I'm going to select Mode to Normal, Opacity at 100%, and then the offset, let's go ahead and try out, I don't know, let's try 0.1 and see what that looks like. 0.1 here as well. The blur, let's leave 0.2 or change it to 0.2, and I'm going to hit Preview here just so I can see what it looks like. And yeah, let's hit OK, deselect it, and oh, what have I done? Whew, I know what I've done. I need to select the text. The beauty of live YouTube. I'll select the text, and I'll do that same process again. I'll drop down my effects, stylize. Oh no, what do you know? Now I'm running into real trouble. Yep, got to select it. I think maybe we just can't see it. I've got my drop shadow right here. I'm going to click it. I'm going to change this to 0.2. Preview it. Can't see it again. I don't know, we might just walk away from this one. Can't be perfect all the time. There we go, we changed the blur. That's the problem. We got too much blur involved in there. Now we can see that the drop shadow is actually offset quite a bit. I'm going to do a little bit less than that. Let's do 0.01 and 0.01. There we go, now we're talking. And let's do just a skish of blur on there. Nope, that's too much still. Let's do 0.01 on the blur as well. It is in inches. We could have changed that to something else, but we're okay. Let's see what that 0.1 of blur. Yeah, I like that. Ooh, that's nice. That is nice. I like that. Just enough blur. So we'll select the background rectangle, hold the Shift key down and hold the words down, and I'll hit Command G to group those. Incidentally, if it's Object, Group once you have those things selected if you need the menus. We'll come over here to our exemplar, hit Command 0 so that I can see all of it. I need another text box that says, come support your Blazers as they play tonight. So I'll go ahead and just scroll with my scroll wheel. Go back to my type tool. Make a bounding box that's the width of the page. Missed it. Let's go ahead and do it one more time. All the way to the edge and down to the bottom. Go back to the type tool. triple click inside there, or just click inside there and hit Command A and put come support your trailblazers. Let's go trailblazers. Blazers as they play tonight. Exclamation, exclamation. Come support your Blazers. I put Blazers here earlier, but I'm going to go with Trailblazers because I like that idea. 3 exclamation points. I went with 2. That's okay. We're going to be all right. 5 p.m. women, 7:30 p.m. men, and Burns Arena. So I'll go ahead and not do that, what I just did. I'm going to hit Escape, and then I'm going to hit Delete. To delete that, go back to my Type tool. That's what happens when you change over. You're probably not experiencing that. We'll do 5:30 -- women. And 7 p.m. -- men. And then I'm just going to hit the return and type in Burns Arena, even though it's not showing up. Then I'm going to hold my Shift key down and hit the up arrow a couple of times, maybe not. Shift key and the down arrow being up there. So I'll select up there, hit the down arrow with my Shift key. That'll allow me to change the font size of that part of it right there, so that I can hopefully get that Burns Arena to show up. Yep, I can't select it when it's off the screen. So I will go ahead and select all of that text, including the Burns Arena, and change this to, let's go 8 point. That looks about right. And I'm going to select this text and make it a little bit smaller than 15. Let's go ahead and go 12 point on that. Yeah, perfect. 12 point. No, 12 point. I don't know. Yeah, 12 point works. I'm just going to put a carriage return right here, though, and delete that space that's up there. Now this text looks like, I'm sure it needs to be white. Yep, that's what we got. We got white right there. Actually, I'm not going to make that white. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to use my DSU beige that's right here. Change that to DSU beige. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Go over to my selection tool, and I'm going to do my appearance, effects, stylize, drop shadow. And I might just leave this totally as it is. Maybe I'll change the blur down to 0. I'm going to change the blur to 0. Yep. So it's normal, 100%, 0.01, 0.01, 0 inches on there. And let's check out what that looks like. Perfect, but I think I better put a carriage return in here. I'm going to double click right there. That'll bring me to my Type tool automatically. And I'll go ahead and go back to my selection tool, and I'm going to hit Command 0. Get this character palette out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And what do you know? Hit Command S to save. And let's go ahead and export this. File, export, export for screens. I've got my artboard selected. I'm going to be throwing this in Creative Clouds. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put this on the desktop. We'll hit Desktop, select Choose. And it's going to be a PNG. I'm going to change that to a PDF. And select Export Artboard. Then right here on my desktop, I'll hit the spacebar to preview, and there's our finished piece. 5:30 women. I should have put a PM in there, but that's okay. Dixie State University, come support your Trailblazers as they play tonight. Now the beauty of this is that it is in vector form. So if I wanted to make it larger, I could just select all of it and just expand it out, and it's going to be in vector form. Might need to adjust the drop shadow just a little bit, but that's okay. This is going to be a fantastic thing for you to do. Try it out if you're trying to learn Illustrator, or if you're in my class here at Dixie State University. Go ahead and build me one of these and submit it as an assignment. If you're interested in more information about Dixie State University, I put a link to our website, mediastudies.dixie.edu, in the description of this video, and I would sure love it if you would like and subscribe this particular video and follow us, because I do these videos periodically showing how to use Illustrator, Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects, all kinds of great stuff. So stay tuned and watch all these live versions. I'm Dr. David Harris, happy to be here with you from Dixie State University, and I invite you to take care, and we'll see you on the next show.